In the vast, unforgiving expanse of the American frontier, where the sun scorched the earth and the wind whispered tales of hardship, a young girl named Eliza, barely 16, lay crumpled in the dust, her breath shallow and her body battered. The settlers she had traveled with, a ragtag group fleeing their own failures, had abandoned her after a fever swept through their camp. They called her a burden, weak and useless, and left her beneath an old juniper tree with nothing but the tattered remnants of her cotton dress and a fading hope of survival. The sky above was a merciless blue, stretching endlessly over the red rock canyons of what would one day be known as Arizona. Eliza's lips cracked as she whispered a prayer, her voice barely audible against the howling wind. She had been a dreamer once, her heart full of stories about the West, of adventure and new beginnings. Her family had joined the wagon train seeking a better life, but cholera had taken her parents, and now the settlers had discarded her like a broken tool. As her vision blurred and the world dimmed, she thought she saw a shadow moving across the horizon, a towering figure, broad-shouldered and cloaked in the colors of the desert. Was it a mirage, born of delirium, or something real? Her eyes fluttered shut, and she sank into darkness, unaware that fate was about to intervene in a way she could never have imagined. The figure was no illusion but a man, a Navajo giant named Tehoma, whose presence seemed to command the very earth he walked upon. Tehoma, a solitary wanderer, had seen the settlers' tracks and sensed their cruelty in the air. His people, the Diné copyright, knew these lands as sacred, a place where spirits danced in the wind and the rocks held ancient secrets. He knelt beside Eliza, his dark eyes scanning her frail form, and saw not a burden but a life teetering on the edge. With hands as steady as the canyon walls, he lifted her, her weight no more than a feather to his immense strength, and carried her toward his camp hidden deep within a maze of sandstone spires. There, in the shade of a cottonwood grove, he tended her with care, brewing teas from desert herbs and coaxing life back into her body. Eliza awoke to the scent of sage and the sound of a low, rhythmic chant, her eyes meeting Tehoma's for the first time. He spoke little, his voice deep as thunder, but his kindness needed no words. She was safe, for now, but the journey ahead would test her in ways she could not yet fathom. For Tehoma saw in her a spark the settlers had missed, a resilience that could make her rise higher than she'd ever dreamed. 2 days turned to weeks in the hidden camp, where the rhythm of life followed the sun's arc across the sky. Eliza, still weak but growing stronger, learned to navigate the unfamiliar world of Tehoma's people, though he lived apart from his clan, a solitary figure bound by his own unspoken vows. His camp was a sanctuary of woven blankets, clay pots, and the faint hum of stories told in the flicker of firelight. Tehoma taught her the names of the plants that healed yarrow for her fever, prickly pear for her wounds, and the ways of the desert, where every rock and shadow held meaning. Eliza, whose pale skin burned under the sun, felt like an outsider, her settler roots clashing with the ancient pulse of this land. Yet Tehoma's patience was a bridge, his gestures deliberate, his rare words heavy with purpose. He called her as a tilde inverted exclamation mark a tilde inverted exclamation mark and a ring a tilde copyright ch shade diaresis dot a diaresis dot t circumflex 1/4 a ring a tilde copyright ch shade diaresis dot a diaresis dot t circumflex 1/4 meaning little white bird. A name that made her smile despite her uncertainty. She began to see the world through his eyes, the stars as guides, the wind as a storyteller, the earth as a mother. But the settlers' abandonment haunted her, a wound deeper than this fever. Why had they left her? Was she truly so worthless? Tehoma, sensing her turmoil, told her of the Diné copyright, while how all things were connected. How even the smallest life had a place in the great weave of existence. He showed her how to weave a basket, her clumsy fingers fumbling at first, but his steady guidance shaping her efforts into something beautiful. One night, under a sky ablaze with stars, he spoke of the holy people, the deities who shaped the world, and how they tested the strong to make them stronger. Eliza listened, her heart stirring with a new kind of hope. She began to dream again, not of the settlers' promises of land and wealth, but of a life rooted in this vast, living world. Yet danger lingered beyond the canyon walls. The settlers' trail had not gone unnoticed, and whispers of conflict between their kind and the Navajo reached even Tehoma's secluded camp. Eliza feared her presence might bring trouble, but Tehoma's resolve was unshakable. He had saved her not out of pity, but because he saw a spirit worth saving, one that could soar if given the chance. As she learned to walk the desert paths, to read the signs of the land, she felt herself changing, her old fears giving way to a quiet strength she hadn't known she possessed. 3. The desert was both teacher and taskmaster, and Eliza's transformation was slow but undeniable. She learned to move with the grace of a deer, her steps light on the sun-baked earth, guided by Tehoma's lessons in survival. He taught her to find water in hidden springs, to track the faint prints of animals, and to listen for the subtle warnings in the wind. Her hands, once soft and untested, grew calloused as she helped Tehoma build shelters from juniper branches and clay. She marveled at his strength, his massive frame moving with a quiet power that seemed to draw from the land itself. Yet he was not invincibly. His solitude spoke of a past marked by loss, though he shared little of it. Eliza, too, carried her own scars, and their shared silence became a bond, a language of glances and gestures that needed no translation. She began to wear the clothes Tehoma crafted for her, moccasins of deerskin, a woven tunic dyed with ochre, and felt less like the settler girl left to die and more like someone new, someone who belonged. But the outside world was closing in. One day, as they scouted a ridge, they spotted a plume of dust in the distance, a wagon train, not the one that had abandoned her, but another, bristling with rifles and suspicion. Tehoma's face darkened, and he spoke of the growing tensions, how settlers encroached on Navajo lands, blind to the sacred balance of the world. Eliza's heart sank, torn between her old life and the one she was building. She wanted to believe she could bridge these worlds, but the settlers' fear and greed were a wall she could not climb. That night, by the fire, she asked Tehoma why he had saved her, a stranger, when his own people faced such threats. His answer was simple yet profound: "You were alive." That was enough. His words struck her like a revelation, rekindling the spark of purpose she thought she'd lost. She vowed to honor his kindness, to learn not just to survive but to thrive in this land that had claimed her. As the days passed, she began to see herself not as a victim but as a student of the desert, her spirit rising with each new skill, each moment of connection with Tehoma and the land that sustained them. 4. The seasons shifted, the desert blooming briefly with wildflowers before returning to its austere beauty, and Eliza grew into her new life with a quiet ferocity. She was no longer the frail girl left to die but a young woman who could start a fire with flint and sagebrush, who could read the sky for signs of rain, and who carried herself with a confidence that mirrored Tehoma's own. He began to share more of his people's stories, tales of the First World and the emergence of the Din-A-Tilde copyright, of heroes who walked with the gods. Eliza absorbed these stories, weaving them into her own understanding of the world, her settler upbringing fading like a distant memory. She learned to sing the songs Tehoma taught her, her voice soft but growing bolder, carrying the melodies of the Navajo into the night. Yet the threat of the settlers loomed larger. One morning, hoofbeats echoed through the canyon, and Tehoma's sharp eyes spotted a group of Mini militia, not settlers, armed and searching for something or someone. Eliza's heart raced. She feared they were looking for her, perhaps believing she'd been taken captive. Tehoma, ever calm, led her to a hidden crevice in the rocks, where they watched the man pass, their voices harsh with talk of savages and retribution. Eliza trembled, not for herself but for Tehoma, who had risked everything to save her. When the danger passed, she asked him what they should do. His answer was to teach her Moria, to make her not just a survivor but a protector of the land and its ways. He showed her how to use a bow, how to move unseen, how to blend into the desert's embrace. Eliza's hands shook as she drew the bowstring, but Tehoma's steady presence gave her courage. She began to see her role not as a passive learner but as a partner in preserving the balance he spoke of. The desert, once a place of fear, became her ally, its secrets unfolding under Tehoma's guidance. She felt a fire within her, a purpose that lifted her higher than the settlers' dreams of conquest ever could. 5. As winter's chill settled over the canyons, Eliza and Tahoma faced new challenges. Food was scarce, and the desert's harshness tested their resilience. Together, they hunted, setting traps for rabbits and gathering roots that Tahoma knew by heart. Eliza's skills grew sharper, her instincts honed by the land's demands. She no longer saw herself as separate from this world but as part of its rhythm, her breath in sync with the wind, her steps in harmony with the earth. Tahoma, too, seemed to change, his solitary nature softening in her presence. He began to share fragments of his past, how he had lost his family to conflict with settlers, how he had chosen a life apart to honor their memory while protecting the land. Eliza listened, her heart aching for his pain, and vowed to prove herself worthy of his trust. Their bond deepened, not as lovers but as kindred spirits, two souls shaped by loss yet rising through shared purpose. But the militia's presence grew bolder, their patrols edging closer to the camp. One night, under a moonless sky, Tahoma woke Eliza with a warning. They had to move. The militia had found signs of their camp, and staying meant risking capture or worse. They packed swiftly, leaving no trace, and set out into the labyrinth of canyons, Tahoma's knowledge of the land their only guide. Eliza's heart pounded, but she trusted him completely, her fear tempered by the strength she'd built. As they traveled, Tahoma spoke of a sacred place, a high mesa where the Din-A-Tilde copyright held ceremonies to restore balance. He believed it was time for Eliza to see it, to understand the heart of his people's way. The journey was grueling, the cold biting at their skin, but Eliza pushed forward, her spirit unyielding. When they reached the mesa, its flat summit rising like a table against the stars, Eliza felt a surge of awe. Tahoma led her to a circle of stones, where he began a chant, his voice weaving with the wind. Eliza joined him, her voice tentative but growing stronger, and in that moment, she felt herself lifted not just by the mesa's height but by a sense of belonging that transcended her past. 6. The mesa became a turning point for Eliza, a place where she shed the last remnants of her old self. Tahoma taught her the blessing way, a ceremony of renewal, and though she was not Din-A-Tilde copyright, he believed her heart was true enough to carry its spirit. She learned to pray in the Navajo way, offering corn pollen to the dawn, her hands steady as she honored the four directions. The act felt like a rebirth, as if the desert had claimed her as its own. Tahoma watched her with quiet pride, his eyes reflecting the firelight as he spoke of her growth. "You are no longer the little white bird," he said. "You are a hawk, strong and free." Eliza's heart swelled, but the peace of the mesa was fleeting. The militia's pursuit grew relentless, their tracks circling closer, driven by rumors of a white girl living among the Navajo. Eliza feared she was a danger to Tahoma, a beacon drawing trouble to his sanctuary. She offered to leave, to face the settlers alone, but Tahoma's refusal was firm. "You are part of this now," he said, gesturing to the land around them. "We stand together." Their flight from the militia took them deeper into the desert, to places where the rocks seemed to whisper and the stars burned brighter. Eliza's skills as a tracker and survivor were put to the test, and she proved herself time and again, spotting dangers Tahoma missed. Her instincts now as sharp as his. They evaded capture through cunning and courage, moving like shadows through the canyons. One night, as they rested in a hidden cave, Eliza asked Tahoma about the future. Could she truly belong here, a settler's daughter in a Navajo world? He told her of the Din-A-Tilde copyright as belief in harmony, how all people could find their place if their hearts were open. Eliza clung to his words, her spirit soaring with the possibility of a life where she could honor both her past and her new path. The desert, once a place of death, had become her home, and she would fight for it as fiercely as Tahoma did. 7. The pursuit reached its climax in the heart of spring, when the desert bloomed with fleeting color and the air hummed with life. Eliza and Tahoma, now a seamless team, had evaded the militia for months, but the net was tightening. A confrontation was inevitable, and it came on at dawn when the sun painted the canyons gold. The militia, led by a grizzled captain driven by tales of a stolen girl, cornered them near a dry riverbed. Eliza's heart thundered, but she stood tall beside Tahoma, her bow in hand, her eyes fierce with the strength she earned. The captain demanded her return, calling Tahoma a savage, but Eliza stepped forward, her voice clear and unbroken. "I was left to die by your kind," she said. "This man saved me, and this land is my home." The militia hesitated, struck by her resolve, but the captain's anger flared, and he raised his rifle. Tahoma moved like lightning, disarming the man with a single motion, his towering presence cowing the others. Eliza spoke again, her words a bridge between worlds, pleading for peace, for understanding. She told them of Tahoma's kindness, of the desert's lessons, of a way to coexist without blood. Some of the men lowered their weapons, their faces softening, but the captain's hatred ran deep. In a moment of chaos, he lunged for his gun, and Eliza, acting on instinct, loosed an arrow, striking his hand. The fight ended as quickly as it began, the militia retreating, their resolve broken by the sight of a girl transformed into a warrior. Tahoma and Eliza stood together, unscathed, their bond sealed in the face of danger. The desert seemed to exhale, its silence a testament to their victory. Eliza knew this was not the end of conflict, but it was a moment of triumph, a proof that she had risen higher than the settlers' cruelty, higher than her own fears. 8. In the aftermath, Eliza and Tahoma returned to the mesa, where the air felt lighter, the stars brighter. The confrontation had changed something in Eliza. She was no longer just a survivor but a guardian of the land and its stories. Tahoma, too, seemed lighter, as if her courage had eased the weight of his solitude. They spoke of the future, of finding his people, of sharing the lessons they'd learned together. Eliza dreamed of a world where the didn't copyright and settlers could find harmony. Though she knew it would be a long road, she began to teach Tahoma fragments of her own world, simple songs from her childhood, the names of constellations she'd learned as a girl, blending them with his traditions. They wove new stories together, tales of a hawk and a giant who walked the desert as kin. Eliza's heart was full, not with the settlers' dreams of conquest but with a deeper ambition, to live in balance, to honor the land that had saved her. As summer approached, they set out to find Tahoma's clan, carrying with them the hope of a new beginning. Eliza knew she would face challenges, a distrust from some Navajo, suspicion from settlers, but she was ready. The desert had made her strong, Tahoma had made her wise, and together they had made her high, not in pride but in spirit, lifted by the land and the bond they shared. As they walked, the canyons stretched before them, endless and alive, whispering promises of a future where a frontier girl, once left to die, could soar as a hawk, forever bound to the heart of the Navajo world.